an update from the International Court of Justice. Now, I do want to explain because I don't want people to get confused. This ruling from the ICJ is not connected to the ruling that was brought forward by South Africa. This ruling is about the occupation that Israel has. And from what I understand, I believe this originally was brought to the ICJ back in 2022. So from what I understand, this is an old thing, but they have just ruled on it now. So why is that significant? This is a separate case compared to the October 7th aftermath. So this is separate. This is solely about the occupation. And I want you to hear what the ICJ had to say about this, because again, this is on record. No, the ICJ, they can't enforce any of these laws, but this is on record. And as I said before, I don't think Israel will ever recover from the things that have been revealed about them on the world stage. Listen to the ruling about the occupation.
The court concludes from the evidence presented to it and on the basis of its analysis that a broad array of legislation adopted and measures taken by Israel in its capacity as an occupying power treat Palestinians differently on grounds specified by international law. The court notes that this differentiation of treatment cannot be justified with reference to reasonable and objective criteria, nor to a legitimate public aim. Accordingly, the court is of the view that the regime of comprehensive restrictions imposed by Israel on Palestinians in the occupied Palestinian territory constitutes systematic discrimination.
We're going to pause there. When it comes to the case that has been brought forth to the ICJ about the occupation, one of the things that they are calling out is that Israel's policies show systematic discrimination. We're going to hear all these, and then you let me know if this sounds familiar to you.
Based on inter area, race, religion, or ethnic origin, in violation of Article 2, Paragraph 1 and 26 of the ICCPR, Article 2, Paragraph 2 of the ICESCR, and Article 2 of CERT. A number of participants have argued that Israel's policies and practices in the occupied Palestinian territory amount to segregation or apartheid in breach of Article 3 of CERT.
Segregation and apartheid. Systematic discrimination, segregation, apartheid.
Article 3 of CERT provides as follows, I quote, "States parties particularly condemn racial segregation and apartheid and undertake to prevent, prohibit, and eradicate all practices of this nature in territories under their jurisdiction." This provision refers to two particularly severe forms of racial discrimination: racial segregation and apartheid.
Racial discrimination, racial segregation, and apartheid. Sound familiar?
The court observed that Israel's legislation and measures imposed and serve to maintain a near complete separation in the West Bank and East Jerusalem between the settler and Palestinian communities. For this reason, the court considers that Israel's legislation and measures constitute a breach of Article 3 of CERT.
So, as some of us that have been covering Israel and Gaza for quite some time, as we've been saying, and we have identified Israel as an apartheid state, and there have been a number of Zionists that have pushed back on that, and they said it's not apartheid because we're the only democracy in the Middle East. What? As if, oh, everyone gets to vote. That doesn't mean you don't have apartheid. That doesn't mean you're not discriminating against certain groups of people. That doesn't mean you've been killing those people. You haven't been killing those people. And those things have been happening. Now, again, this particular case is not connected to October 7th. This was submitted to the ICJ prior to October 7th. Now, why is that significant, ladies and gentlemen? That is significant because it shows you that once again, Israel has been occupying. Israel was the aggressor prior to October 7th. And it gives more ammo to a group like Hamas to retaliate, to resist. That is why this ruling is so significant. Now, what needs to be done? Every country needs to reject the state of Israel. Every country needs to separate itself from Israel completely. Israel has to be isolated on the world stage at this point. This is no different. What was announced there at the ICJ, this is no different than the statements that have been made in the United States about the Black community, the segregation, the apartheid, the systematic discrimination. It's no different. We got rid of Jim Crow for a reason, right? So why is it that the same government that said Jim Crow was shameful, we had to remove that? Why is it that that same government is supporting Israel, who's doing the same thing, just to a different group of people? Now, everybody got to call that out. Because even now, shout out to Max Blumenthal for this one, the Nakba continues today in Khan Yunis as the Israeli genocide regime forces families to flee their tents by firing on a so-called safe zone. This is Biden's ultimate legacy. And this is what I'm saying, folks. Our government is supporting this. Now, I want you to think about that. And I want you to think about how you feel about the person, the murderer, the person who has been leading the charge, Benjamin Netanyahu. I want you to think about how you feel about him arriving here to the United States, because he's already here and stepped foot on the soil. I want you to think about why this murderer, we're not calling him a war criminal anymore. Okay. On this show, Netanyahu will be referred to as a murderer, because that is what he is. I want you to think about why this murderer has been allowed to set foot on U.S. soil. Him and his wife, they've already arrived, set to meet with Congress. You can see it here. Look at the way that they treat him. Look at the way that they treat Benjamin Netanyahu, right? Look at all of them. All of them. Now you see this, right? Okay. So look at the way they treat Benjamin Netanyahu, because according to the U.S. government, Israel is important to U.S. interests, right? Okay. So Netanyahu has killed all these damn kids. And this is how he's greeted. Yet they want you to be afraid of China. They want you to be afraid of Xi Jinping. Don't forget that.
ראש הממשלה, אם תגיד כן לעסקה, לנשיא ביידן. חברים, תודה.
Disgusting. Absolutely disgusting. And as much as people complain and fearmonger about Donald Trump, it's funny to me, the same Democrats that fearmonger about Donald Trump and have Trump derangement syndrome, they're totally fine with this murderer. This is why I call out the BS. It's absolutely ridiculous. And this is all about money interest. And to make matters worse, you have Mike Johnson over here. Now, Speaker Mike Johnson, he's decided that he's implementing a zero tolerance policy for anyone who wants to disturb Netanyahu's address to Congress. You know, like, who the fuck are you, Mike? Who are you? He issued the statement here. Shout out to Hotspot for keeping it real. And on the mic, as usual. It's a little blurry, but I can read it from here. Dear colleagues, as we prepare to host Israeli Prime Minister Netanyahu tomorrow at our joint meeting of Congress, I wanted to provide you with a brief notice of additional security measures and a friendly reminder of the long-standing rules and decorum of the House. Due to the attention garnered by the Prime Minister's address, there will be an increased police presence around the Capitol complex and in the House chamber. In the interest of all involved, we will enforce a zero tolerance policy for disturbances in the building. All members should kindly inform their guests that any disruption of the proceedings of the House is a violation of the rules and may subject the offenders to prosecution. So here's Speaker Mike Johnson trying to play cop. Speaker Mike Johnson is ready to arrest some people and throw some bows. It goes on to say, if any disturbance does occur, the Sergeant at Arms and Capitol Police will remove the offending visitors from the gallery and subject them to arrest. As members, it is incumbent upon us all to likewise model respect and proper decorum as representatives of the American people and our institution, and as ambassadors of the United States on the world stage. It is our tradition to acknowledge every guest speaker's right to free expression, even if we disagree with their viewpoint. If any member creates a disturbance, the Sergeant of Arms will request that such action be ceased immediately, and we trust that request will be heeded. I want to thank you for your attention to these important matters and for your attendance at this historic joint meeting. So he's ready to arrest people, and I do want you to see this response here. This is also from Hotspot. So again, like I said, Hotspot is doing the damn thing. This was Mike Johnson here on C-SPAN.
So we did. We got it scheduled. It'll be next week. It will be a big thing. And I want you to know that there's a number of Democrats in the House who have said they're going to boycott the event. Yeah. Yes. And then some others are going to protest. Listen, we're going to have extra sergeants at arms on the floor, and if anybody gets out of hand, the Speaker of the House will bang the gavel. We're going to arrest people if we have to do it. We're going to get the message out.
So is Mike Johnson, who the hell does he think he is? You know, like this guy has gone more rogue as Speaker of the House than I've ever seen anyone else do. And Mike just doing what the hell he wants to do. Is anybody holding Mike accountable? He's out here acting like he's Al Capone or some shit. Anybody? He's another one that gets a lot of money from AIPAC. He's another one. So he's paid to do what he is doing. But nobody seems to be checking Mike Johnson at all. Now, I do want to add a little tidbit here. It has been announced that Kamala Harris apparently is not appearing at Netanyahu's address to Congress. However, she is meeting with Netanyahu. And I do have to say that because I think that that has been misleading on social media. There are people saying that Kamala Harris is not meeting with Netanyahu. Yes, she is meeting with him. We'll get to that in Kamala's story. Yes, she is meeting with him. She's just not attending this event where he is going to speak to Congress. But that's Mike Johnson trying to throw the shade. And I want to show you this as well, because I want you to see. Oh, I made that a little bit too big there. I want you to see this right here, because this debunks what people are saying on social media. Not the bad cop. Biden officials say Harris won't shift course on supporting Israel. So this is important for people to understand, because there are some rumors going around and they're not true. Officials arguing those claiming vice president will take a harder line with Jerusalem are engaged in wishful thinking. They say she shares ironclad U.S. commitment to Israel's security. So does everybody see this? I just want to make this very clear. Kamala Harris is meeting with Benjamin Netanyahu. So we can stop all that I've seen on social media of people saying that she's not. And it says it right here. They even identified it. Those pushing this framing often point to how she became the most senior administration official to call for an immediate ceasefire in March. However, they seem to ignore how the instant cheers from progressive supporters listening to that speech in Selma drowned out the vice president, clarifying that she was referring to the hostage deal that the administration has been trying to broker for months. So people need to understand this. Once again, I want to be very clear. Kamala Harris won't shift course on supporting Israel. She is meeting with the murderer. Again, that's how we will continue to refer to him on this show. But there is a little bit of good news here when it comes to Gaza. It appears that China has decided to step in. And if you think the U.S. was already angry at China, they're going to be even more pissed at them now. Check this out, folks. A little bit of hope there, though. China has hosted talks between 14 Palestinian factions, including Hamas, PFLP, DFLP, PIJ, and Fatah, to end the Palestinian national division and unify national efforts to stop the genocide. This is a profoundly helpful contribution. And here is that video here.
中方一贯坚定支持巴勒斯坦人民恢复民族合法权利的正义事业。
I'm going to read it to you. China firmly supports the just cause of the Palestinian people in restoring their legitimate national rights.
支持巴勒斯坦各派别通过对话协商实现和解。
Supports all Palestinian factions in achieving reconciliation through dialogue and consultation, and supports Palestine in realizing solidarity,
巴勒斯坦早日实现团结统一、独立建国。
unity, and independent statehood at an early date. This is what I was talking about, fam. I'm past the stage of let's just look for unity. I'm looking for solidarity. So this is solidarity. This is when you put someone else's needs before your own. And China is choosing to do that. They're choosing to put the Palestinian people's needs before their own. They don't have to do that.
中方已经并将继续为此做出不懈努力。
China has been and will continue to make relentless effort to this end. For anything more specific, China will release information when appropriate.
关于具体的情况，中方将适时发布消息。
So that is some good news on the Gaza front. I am happy to share that information. And I don't know. Of course, there's so much more that I want to see happen. But it does make me feel good to see that other countries are willing to step in and get involved. And it really does say something about the U.S. government. It really says something on a world stage, because it shows people that, once again, the United States got it wrong. The United States government got it wrong when they went after Julian Assange. Now, he has been released, but when we went after Julian Assange, the U.S. government got it wrong. The U.S. government got it wrong going after Edward Snowden. Actually, all those damn political prisoners, shit. Leonard Peltier, all of them. The U.S. government got it wrong. The U.S. government got it wrong when they refused to call, what was happening in Rwanda a genocide. They got it wrong, and they have it wrong now. And it says something about our government as a whole. And it shows you where we stand. And it also shows other countries that the U.S. government just wants to police the world. They want to be a dominating force. And they don't really want to coexist with anyone. Let's not get it twisted. Because even when it comes to Israel, the U.S. government still want to kind of be running things. It's like, okay, we'll have this partnership with Israel, but as long as we get to dominate all these other countries. I don't think anyone has like this equal footing with the U.S. government, because Israel gets money from us. Think about that. We'll stay tuned. That Congress speech happens on Wednesday. There are going to be protests outside of the Capitol. I know Answer Coalition has a huge protest. I've announced it on the show, 11 a.m. They're going to surround the Capitol. I've already seen videos of protesters there. So there will be a lot of protests happening tomorrow. And I will be very angry if Benjamin Netanyahu leaves DC with more money in his pocket to continue to kill children.